Hey, Twisted listeners. I'm Cindy,
And I'm Diva.
and this is Twisted Listers, a podcast about murder.
And Liz.
And this is a new week, a new topic. We are talking about the murders of New Mexico. And boy, are some of these fucking wild. Like,
Yeah.
crazy.
It's a spooky, deserty place. It's got like aliens. It's got yeah, I feel like it's a spooky paranormal type place too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is. And it's funny, I keep thinking that we're still so I've realized that when I really like a topic, I keep thinking about it and like I decide that we're still doing it. So the Amish murders, like really I enjoyed researching. And so I kept being like, oh, more Amish murders. I'm like, no, it's not. It's not. We're doing murders of New Mexico.
Yeah.
But I think I also not enjoyed, you all know what I'm saying, but like was interested enough in the case that I'm covering that it kind of kept the vibe. So hopefully like these sets of cases are just as like engaging as the Amish ones because I feel like the Amish like we really fucking killed it. So
Yeah,
not
that was really good.
pun not intended. That was bad. Uh anyway, anything you want to discuss? Any personal anything we want to talk about before we get into the cases?
No,
Me neither. I got
no.
nothing. All I'm doing is
Might
working.
yeah,
Yeah,
working.
all right. That's it. Okay. Well, I chose, so you go first, yeah?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it.
I have a case I picked because there was a Dateline, although I ended up not watching the Dateline, so I just did,
Mhm.
reading research. This is the murder of Katie Sepich, from 2003 in Las Cruces, New Mexico.
Okay.
Um, Home of the famous bowling alley massacre, which we did long ago, so I didn't include it on
I
the
was gonna
list.
say.
Yeah,
And I think one of the ones that I'm doing is also has something to do with Las Cruces. Like I'm not sure
yeah,
exactly what, but yeah. Hmm.
yeah.
Anyway, okay,
It's a
sorry.
clearly a spooky place. People were murdered at a bowling alley. Go check it out if you don't know that case. It's really spooky.
Hmm.
I think we did it for like murdered at work or like coworker. Like it was like murdered
Yeah.
on the workplace on the job. Um,
Hmm.
long ago. So,
Yes.
uh, Katie Sepich was 22. She was originally from Carlsbad, New Mexico. She had gotten her business degree from New Mexico State University, and in fall 2003 was going to start an MBA program there. So she's just graduated. She worked as a waitress at a Mexican restaurant, which I just for some reason wanted to say was called El Sombrero, which is like
Oh
cheesy,
Lord.
very New Mexico style. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, in my like family, I think LA, like Chicano and Mexican food people look down at like the Southwest, and Tejano food, like Texas food too, is like, ooh,
Hmm.
So I have a little bit of
Right.
snot. That's why I said New
Tex-Mex.
Mexico. When I said New Mexico Mexican food, I was like, oh, that was me being a snob. Um, it's better in LA, it's true.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, Katie here also had a long-term boyfriend named Joe Bischoff. She had been seeing him for about 8 months, and according
Okay.
to some reports, they planned to get married, and he had given her a ring. So boyfriend slash possible fiance here. So she's doing great. She's fucking doing her career thing. She's got a job. She's got a boyfriend. It's all good.
Hmm.
However, many people report that Katie and Joe's relationship wasn't going amazing as she was about to start grad school and he was
Hmm.
actually planning to move a couple hours away to work at a family business. So their lives were not really converging, or he wasn't
Hmm.
like committed enough to like go with her, or like, it's iffy what they were doing.
Okay. Okay.
Um, Labor Day weekend, here we are, 2003.
Here we are.
Katie goes bar hopping with Joe. I just realized I was doing a lot of like gestures to you, but we're on a podcast, so that's stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
I,
enjoying them, but
I like to hand gesture sometimes. Okay,
I do. No, dude, I hand gesture all the time on this fucking thing.
it's
The
because
funniest thing when I'm listening back will be like, and she kind of went like this, and then there's like a silent
yeah,
moment where like
where
we are
you're
just
just
talking to
miming
each
it
other.
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's because we're both of
So funny.
Italian descent, so that's where it comes
Yeah.
from.
Use our hands a lot. It's just how we
Yeah.
are.
Um,
Okay,
okay.
so anyway.
So many okay, wait. Oh, yeah, okay, Labor Day weekend. So Katie goes bar hopping with Joe and some other friends. So they're out partying and drinking, whatever. She's 22, sure.
Doing her thing. Yeah, living her life.
And she goes to a house party as her kind of final stop of the night. It's only 2 blocks away from her house, so like a neighbor's house party, essentially.
Okay. Hmm.
And the night had been reportedly going well for the couple up until this point, but at the house party, I think they had been, drinking obviously somewhat, and they get into a fight at this house because Katie actually walked in on Joe kissing another woman, making out with another
Well,
girl.
okay. It doesn't even have to
So
do with them drinking. I'm
no, I
stone
don't know.
cold sober and like I would fucking
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I the drinking is kind of besides the point, because
I'm
obviously
sure it didn't
that's
help, but
yeah, yeah, it amps up emotions, but you're gonna be pissed no matter what. Um,
yeah.
So she's like, "What the actual fuck?" She freaks out after
Hmm.
after this fight. She was seen leaving the party just after midnight. Kind of, it sounds like in a huff, if you will,
Hmm.
storming off. One
Okay.
could say.
Okay.
Um,
Hmm.
Investigators find that she left her purse, phone, and keys at the house party. So she really like stormed off.
She was like,
Um,
I'm fucking that's the alcohol. That's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
alcohol.
yeah,
Hmm.
and she's
Yeah.
also probably and the emotions of just like, "Fuck this," like, she's just like,
Hmm. I don't
just
fucking care.
yeah, yeah, "Fuck you."
Hmm.
And also she's so close, so she, you know, easily could have ran back, if things had gone differently here.
Hmm.
Um, so outside of her home, so basically Katie's reported missing after this. Her roommate reports her missing the next day, and
Okay.
investigators poke around, and because she never came home, but they do find signs of a struggle outside of the home where some gravel is askew, and they're like,
Oh.
okay, what's that about? And of course, they find her shit at the party, and that's like concerning. So they're like, okay,
Hmm.
she left, but she never came back for her shit. She's without her stuff.
But she maybe was almost home when something
Hmm.
happened, which is so like heart-wrenching. That's
Yeah,
always so much for whatever reason. I guess it's always terrible, but it's like so much worse when you're so close to safety and then you
yeah.
just it sucks. It just sucks.
So very shortly after she's reported missing, I think it's like that day or the next day, Katie's body is
Mhm.
actually found in a landfill in the desert outside of Las Cruces.
Mhm.
So there's our desert moment.
Okay.
Um, in a former landfill, I think. And it was
Mhm.
found forensically that she had been sexually assaulted, strangled, and partially burnt.
Jesus fuck.
Yeah.
Good
Um,
God.
so before she was found, also this is just a little spooky moment here. Her mom,
Mhm.
Jan, said that she kind of knew what was happening. She had like an anxious, paranoid feeling and sensed that this was happening. Like,
Mhm.
and then got the call. So she had like a mom's spidey sense moment.
Okay.
Detectives circle back to her boyfriend Joe, obviously, who they want to fucking talk to because they had a rough night there.
Yeah.
He admitted fully to kissing the other girl and to the fight, and like that's exactly what happened. But he said he didn't see her after that. He didn't kill her. Um, that's that. But police do find him suspicious because he fled to his family's home right after this. He doesn't attend her funeral.
Mhm.
And everyone who was at the party, about like 40 people in total, submitted DNA for testing, but not Joe. He refuses.
Wow.
So that's rough. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Uh,
Huh.
so the investigation slows, but they do have a partial DNA sample produced from DNA found on Katie. So
Okay.
DNA is there, but it takes 2 years to put or sorry, almost 2 years, um, about a year total, a year and a half to take the DNA through the system to be tested, like CODIS and all that, right? To like test it
Mhm.
against other criminals and shit.
Uh-huh.
So later in 2004, the DNA is finally tested, and by the way, it exonerates Joe. So Joe is not the contributor of the DNA.
So what the fuck?
But it does identify a convicted felon named Gabriel Avila, who's 23, as the contributor of the DNA.
Wait, why
So,
would wait, didn't Joe not submit to DNA?
Oh, you know what it was? Yeah, I missed a key part of something there. I think they got his DNA from her bed sheets. I'm glad I remembered that, but I didn't write it down. They
Oh,
got his
got it.
DNA in a sneaky way. They extracted it from somewhere else and tested it.
Got
So
it.
even though
Okay.
he didn't submit it, he should have because it exonerated him. But maybe he's just one of those guys who doesn't want his DNA in the system, kind of thing, or something. I don't
Which
know.
is, yeah, and I have to point out because every time that people are like he wouldn't submit his DNA, there's automatically like a sort of assumption of guilt against that person. But it's pretty frequent that people refuse to enter their DNA and then they end up also not being guilty. So we all have to kind
Yes,
of remember
there's
that and
other
think not
reasons
to
for
like,
it. Yeah.
yes, there
Or
are.
maybe
There
you're
are.
thinking, oh, the cops are gonna like plant it or they're gonna fake it, like maybe you're that like kind of paranoid. And they
Yeah.
have done that. So
Fuck yeah.
um
I mean, I understand why they feel that way. I do not blame them, but like, you
yeah.
know,
Um
yeah. Anyway,
so
okay.
what the fuck is up with Gabriel here?
Mm-hmm.
What has he been up to? So a few months after
Yeah, what has he
August
been up to?
2003, in this murder in November 2003, so just a few months after Katie's murder, Gabriel actually broke
Mm-hmm.
into an apartment occupied by two female college roommates, attempting to assault them, Ted Bundy style, just like
Ew.
Berserker.
Mm-hmm.
And they were able to hide in their bathroom and barricade themselves in and call 911, thankfully.
Mm.
Still very scary, but they managed to do that.
Okay. That's good.
He was arrested on the spot and convicted of aggravated burglary with intent to commit aggravated assault. And
Okay, so they knew what he was up to.
yep. Um,
Mm-hmm.
he goes on, but while he's out on bond, he goes on the run, escapes, and he lives as a fugitive until he's caught in November 2004, for the break-in.
So he
Yeah,
actually is a fugitive for that? Like
for
that's not
that.
even
Yes.
like that's like not probably a lot of like
Yeah.
time that
So
he would serve.
he's convicted on those charges, and he ultimately gets sentenced to 9 years in prison. Um, and
Okay.
it's only after that conviction that his DNA is officially put into the system.
Wow.
Then it does a hit in Katie's case. Yeah.
So maybe that's why, honestly. Like maybe that's why he didn't want to like be caught because he knew that his DNA would go in and he'd get caught for the
Mm,
bigger thing.
right.
Like
Yeah.
that because it's like why would you run for something that
Well,
it's not minor, but like
all 9 years.
comparatively,
Yeah.
it's like I don't know. I
Well,
don't know.
he goes on the run. Yeah, it doesn't work. They find him. But
Like regardless.
yeah. So when police interview Gabriel, who by the way is also a married father, so like get your life together. What are you doing?
Yeah, come on,
What are you
bro.
doing? What are you doing?
Get your shit
Um,
together, fool.
they confront him with the DNA match in Katie's case, and he confesses. He's like, "Okay, you have DNA? Okay." Like he just like
It's like
puts in the cards, folds and
he just
folds. Yeah,
wow, that's crazy.
doesn't
I
happen a
mean,
lot like
good.
that, but yeah,
No. I
yeah,
mean, it's harder. It's fucking hard with DNA, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. Well, a
Like
lot of people
what
are
are you gonna
idiots, and
do?
they're like, "Oh, I wasn't there." Still, but he's just like, "Okay, DNA, fuck it."
Yeah.
Um, and he does confess, weirdly though, so I'll get into it. So
Mm-hmm.
he kind of prefaces, and you can read actually the transcript of his interview and confession with police, which is pretty weird and compelling. But
Yeah.
he basically establishes first that the police can keep him safe from attacks in prison and keep his family safe. And I'll explain that more in a minute. But he's kind of like, okay, you
Okay.
can keep us safe and keep me safe. And they're like, yeah, okay, whatever. They're saying whatever. And he's like,
Yeah.
okay. So he proceeds with his confession, which first is about that he met a random guy at a bar drinking that night who basically took him. This is classic. You're going to recognize this. Basically took him on a crazy journey that night, abducting and sexually assaulting a woman, strangling her, and then dumping her body. And Gabriel was just there and was just so scared.
He was
Uh,
just there.
and he was
Yep.
a witness to this crazy murder guy doing it. And then this guy pulled a gun on him and threatened him and his family if he said anything. So he was just so scared.
Of course.
This
Of
other guy did
course.
everything, right?
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
no. So that didn't happen.
No.
There
No.
and there was no like additional
Oh my
man DNA also
God.
found on her. So there's nothing that could even remotely corroborate this. Um,
Right.
so eventually they basically just
What an idiot.
massage his story until the truth comes out. It's pretty easy.
Right.
So his confession evolves to the real and horrible story. He says that he was out trying to buy cocaine because his wife had left town. Don't know where
Nice.
his kids are. Fuck his kids, I guess. They're just like, whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
fuck them kids.
yes. And he said he was also going through a hard time because he was an immigrant and his work permit was just denied. So he was having some immigration struggles, hence, I guess, the cocaine and murder. That's his way of coping,
Yeah. I
you
mean,
know,
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
his way of coping, totally normal. Um,
Totally normal. Not fucked up at all.
yeah, so he's out driving and he
Oh,
says he
Lord.
first just stumbles upon Katie in the neighborhood and he accidentally almost like runs her over. Like he kind of like almost hits her in the car. So he kind of s- follows her, stops, goes around and sees her again near her house. He says that I'll just read the quote because it's ridiculous. Quote,
Mm-hmm.
I stopped and asked her if she needed help. She goes, I just can't get into my house. I don't have my purse. She so he jumps into basically he attacks her. He says, quote, she put up a little bit of a fight and for some reason I decided I was going to strangle her. I had my hands around her. I locked and couldn't let go. um so like 0 to 100, he's like random girl, opportunity, I attacked her.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not good.
And sees that she's obviously in this vulnerable position where she can't get in the house. um and Yeah. So at some point, he obviously sexually assaults her. And this all happens only steps away from her bedroom, literally from her home. And
Jesus
this
Christ,
is the
dude.
most haunting detail of this fucking case. Katie actually had a condition, um, a lifelong condition in which she couldn't scream.
What?
Yeah. I don't know the details of it, but her parents and her family and friends described this. She actually just couldn't. She had like a vocal thing, a raspy voice, and like she couldn't scream physically.
Oh, so she's just not even.
Yeah,
Wow. Wow, dude.
yeah.
That's fucking crazy.
And Gabriel doesn't fucking know that, of course. So it's pretty bold to attack someone when you don't know who else is in that house, right?
Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
there, basically in public. Um, yeah. So he basically uh pleads yeah, he basically attacked her next to her home, next to her bedroom window, as she was, and saw her as she was attempting to break into her home via the bedroom window. And she couldn't scream. And so her roommate and roommate's mom were in the house, but never heard it.
That's so fucked up.
Isn't that
That's so
haunting?
fucked. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Investigators also find the truck Gabriel would have been driving the night of the murder, which had been sold since obviously he'd been up to a lot of other stuff
Yeah.
since this murder. And they search it, the new owner lets them search it, and they find a ring of Katie's still in the central console. So
Oh, wow.
it's like evidence she had been in there, or rather her body had been in there, because what happens is um, after sexually assaulting and strangling her, he put her body in his truck and took her to that landfill where he dumped her and then doused her in alcohol and attempted to burn her body.
Wow.
Yeah,
Jesus. This is so crazy.
it's
Like
rough.
this just goes to show like wrong place, wrong time. It's so fucked up. Like
Yeah. And I
it's
forget
like
the case where, what was it? I think it was like Murdered on Camera that week, where we had one girl who was like drunk and just walking around and just like, we all thought it was the boyfriend, but no, it was a random guy who just abducted her, right?
yeah,
And
right.
I always, or the security guard in her apartment, remember when she got back? And it's like,
Yeah,
there's something terrifying that, like, as a drunk or vulnerable woman, you cannot exist without being preyed upon in like 5 minutes. You know, like it's
right. Yeah,
really fucked up.
it's
Like,
really fucked up.
just like
Oh
a
my God.
women are so vulnerable instantaneously. Like you're just
Yeah.
out in the world. It's
Yeah,
it's
it's
fucked up.
crazy. It is
Like
fucked up.
2 blocks, you know. Um,
That's so nuts.
yeah,
And
and
not being able to scream. I actually had
yeah.
a friend, like, I don't know that it was a medical condition, but her voice was so fucking raspy. And the crazy thing was she was super loud, but I
Mm,
wonder if she could have yelled, but she couldn't have screamed. Like, for
oh,
sure
yeah,
wouldn't have heard it.
interesting.
What a weird fucking thing to even think about.
Yeah. So basically, Gabriel ends up pleading guilty to first-degree murder, rape, kidnapping, and tampering with evidence.
Holy
Um,
shit.
yeah. So he just folds the cards in, like I said.
Mhm.
Um, at a sentencing hearing, Katie's family and friends asked for him to get basically as long a sentence as possible. In
Mhm.
2007, Avila is sentenced to 69 years in prison. Um,
Wow.
and he'll be eligible for parole only after serving the first 30 years of his sentence in the year 2043. So I think that's a pretty
Mhm.
solid amount of time.
Yeah, that's good. Wait, how old was he though?
Not,
20,
I didn't get,
like
oh yeah,
in
it's
his 20s?
23 at the time of the murder.
Okay, so that's pretty
So
old. That's old as fuck.
it's, yeah, yeah, 69 years is basically a life sentence when you're 20. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it'll do. So after their
Yeah.
daughter's murder, Katie's family and her mom, Jan, in particular, actually sought to change the law in New Mexico and pretty much everywhere in the country so that everyone who's arrested and charged with a violent crime in New Mexico has a DNA sample taken from them and put into databases right away, as opposed to
Mhm.
those who are convicted of those violent crimes.
Oh,
So,
man,
um,
don't agree with that. I'm sorry. I don't.
yes. So in 2006, the New Mexico state legislature. So before the case was even resolved, or no, after the case was resolved,
Mhm.
they passed this law which they called Katie's Bill in honor of Jan campaigning, and
Mm-mm.
they've campaigned to get similar laws on the books in every state, which has been pretty successful. And now over 31 states have similar laws, and they've made it into a federal law as well. I guess if you're convicted of a federal or arrested for a federal crime. So yeah, as
Where's the ACLU? Like,
Cindy's been
where are
shaking her
they?
head. Cindy's been shaking her head, and
No,
I was gonna say here is my final point that like I I don't want to besmirch a victim's family, and I get wanting to make something that like is permanent and that matters in terms
yeah,
of legislature out of your child's murder. Like that can be, it has been done very effectively, but in this case, I
totally.
don't love it because the distinction between arrested and convicted is actually quite important. And if
Yeah.
you're arrested for something, there's the implication is you haven't been proven guilty. You could just be thrown out. It could be,
No,
all kinds of reasons why you're being framed or racially profiled. And then if you're not convicted, I mean, granted, people are convicted that are innocent too, but like, still, there should be that like barrier between those who are arrested and those who are convicted.
I
It's kind of
agree.
assuming
Like
that
that's
that your rights are
ridiculous.
taken away from you just because you're arrested.
Yeah, just for being a suspect, you're having your
Yeah,
shit like
yeah,
forcibly against your
taken.
will taken, which is not. I'm wondering where like the ACLU is. I mean, this is the
Yeah,
type of thing that could absolutely go to the Supreme Court if somebody really wanted to challenge it because that doesn't sound right. It sounds like a really great way to like profile people and just further take away the rights of those who are already, targeted in America. So
yeah,
that's
and
fucked.
and Jayan's gone out doing lots of like speeches and campaigning about this that you can read about, and she says a bunch of stuff that like in language I don't love of like these like monsters and these criminals are out there like preying upon our kids
Hmm.
and like it's like I get what you feel, but like again, the distinction between arrested and convicted is actually worth having. Like it's actually
Yes.
yeah, you can't just
Yes.
call them all monsters and evil criminals for just being arrested yet. Like you can't do
Yeah.
that yet.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
So that's
That's
the
not
that's the big
cool.
thing that came out of this case. But besides that, it's just a fucked up fucking murder as well.
Yeah, that's really horrible. Jesus Christ, dude. Uh, that took a lot of turns that I wasn't
Yeah,
expecting and ended in a way I'm not really super into. So, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go into mine, which is super fucked.
great.
I'm gonna short and sweet, succinct as much as I can. So this is the Griego family murders, otherwise known as the 2013 South Valley homicides. This took place January 19th, 2013 in South Valley, New Mexico. There is a family um, of one, two, three, four, six, I believe.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, I had to pause for a real quick thing. So anyway, this takes place in 2013. I think there are six people living in the Griego home at the time. There's 15-year-old Nehemiah Griego, his younger brother, 9-year-old Zephaniah Griego, and then his two younger siblings, whose names I forgot to write down. It's Greg is his father, wife Sarah, and then JL and Angelina. So those are the younger ones. JL is 5, Angelina is 2. Sorry, I knew I had that
Okay.
written somewhere. So anyway, these six people are living in a home. Greg, the father, is 51 years old. His wife Sarah is 40. They had these children together. And Greg, prior to this, had had 5 other children with a different woman.
Okay.
He had 10 children in all, which is a lot of fucking kids. Now, Greg was a former gang member who had found Jesus after doing a pretty long stint in prison,
Okay.
had completely turned his life around, and I believe was some sort of like minister or otherwise like very heavily involved in the church, as was his entire family. So his wife Sarah, the I don't know shit about the Bible, but these names sound biblical to me.
Yeah, they really
Um,
do.
yeah. So
Old
again,
Testament.
yeah, like I'm a fucking heathen, so I could be totally off, but these sound very biblical.
I know my
So this
Bible,
family,
and those sound, yeah.
they sound biblical, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go with they're biblical. And so they had the 5 older kids living out of the home already because this was kind of like his first round of children had already moved out, and then the younger kids that he'd had with Sarah were all in the house.
Okay.
So January 19th, 2013, Nehemiah is texting with his girlfriend, and he texts her and tells her that his family was killed in a car accident. And his girlfriend is 12. Yes. So,
Wait, what?
yeah, he's 15, his girlfriend's 12. I
Okay.
I I
I
know.
don't
I
think
know.
like I don't think any girlfriend should be 12, even of a 12-year-old. No one should be a girlfriend at 12. Like no one's dating. No one's
They
dating at
shouldn't
that age.
be. I agree.
Okay.
Um yeah, I agree. So, uh anyway, he's telling his 12-year-old girlfriend, he's like, "Oh, my family died today this morning in a car accident." And she's like, "What the fuck?" Like, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah." And then he texts her a photo of his mom dead.
Mm. Oh my
But
God.
she doesn't look like she's in a car. She doesn't look, she looks like dead in a different way. I don't think the 12-year-old could, fully comprehend. So
Yeah.
his girlfriend's like, "Oh my God, let's meet up at the church," because they both go to the same church. She's like, "Let's meet up at this church and, uh, and talk to our pastor and whatever." And he's like, "Okay." So he drives his family car, I guess, at 15 years old to the church and meets up with his girlfriend and her mother. And then he talks to their pastor and he just straight up changes his story and says, "Yeah, I killed my entire family."
Okay, yeah, that is quite a
And
change.
quite a change. And the pastor's like, "Are you like really? Like what?" So he calls police. Police arrive at the home and they find Sarah, Greg, Zephaniah, Jael, and Angelina all dead. They had all been shot to death,
Oh my
and many of
God.
them had been shot multiple times, all with an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle.
Jesus Christ. It's like a fucking mass shooting, school shooting up in here.
Yes.
That's fucked up.
And it's later found that the family, on top of being like big into Jesus, were also big into guns.
Oh, well, that
And
tracks.
yes, it does. And kept them unsecured in the home and had Greg had actually taught Sarah and Nehemiah how to um shoot them, to quote unquote protect themselves, which I'm not really
Right.
sure what they're protecting themselves from, but there you go. So, just kind of talking about the family dynamics, we have this very intense former gang member with his much
Hmm.
younger wife, their children. They're intensely going to church. Everything they do is church life. It's almost like I feel like this father is like clinging to his church life to keep him from gangs.
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
almost
yeah.
like he's got an addictive personality and his addiction is like Jesus.
It's
And I
it's
know
a
that sounds
it's everything's very intense, whether it's guns or Jesus or whatever. Like it's all very
yeah,
like intense.
yeah. So I feel like the family probably had some pretty intense, home life stuff. But from the outside, people were like, Nehemiah was like a great kid. He
Yeah.
was popular, he was well liked, he was active in his church, he played sports, like everything about him was like totally good and normal and fine. And they when police arrest him obviously, and they ask him, why did you do this? And he said, well, I was frustrated with my mom.
Hey.
Yeah, so that's his
That's
answer. I was
it. Like,
frustrated.
but what about your baby siblings, you asshole? Like,
Yeah. So, well, they asked him, what did you do? And he said, this is what I did. And this kind of takes the case in like a different direction and is going to lead into what I mostly want to talk about with regard to this case. So he says, I waited until my mom was asleep in bed and my brother Zephaniah was next to her, and I went in and I shot her in the face with this AR-15. And then my brother obviously, woke up because that's loud as fuck. And I made him stare at her. I made him look at her while he cried. And then I shot him to death.
oh
And
my
then I heard my
God.
younger siblings in their room together wailing and sobbing. And
Oh,
I went into their room and I shot both of them one after
that's
the other.
really dark.
Now, Greg Griego was actually working an overnight shift at a homeless shelter, helping like temporarily house people who are unhoused. It's wintertime, so it's cold even there. And so he went ahead and waited. Nehemiah just waited. He was lying in wait. And when his father came in the door, he ambushed him and shot him to death. So this wasn't like a quick and then like came out of it kind of thing. Like he fucking waited. And he waited hours for his dad to come home. His dad worked overnight. So he then, after he kills his whole family, he takes the picture of his mom. He starts texting his girlfriend. Later told police he got in the car, and in the car, they found tons of ammunition, the AR-15, I think maybe another gun. And he was like, yeah, I was going to go to Walmart and do a mass shooting. But my girlfriend asked me, to come hang out with her at the church because she was worried about me. So I did that instead.
Oh my
So,
God.
yeah.
This
So
kid is a
family
classic mass
annihilator.
shooter. He's a classic mass shooter who I think easily could have done a mass shooting, and then he just like, okay, I'll settle for mass shooting my family.
Yeah, and he has,
That's what he did.
like, the fucking deadest eyes I've ever seen in my whole fucking
Mm,
life, and, bro, what the fuck, truly. Um, so, yeah, he's just I don't know what the deal is. So, Greg's brother is actually, a New Mexican politician named Eric Griego.
mm,
He is a Democrat, and he used to serve on the Senate from 2009 to 2013. And as we said, this, took place in 2013. So he immediately, when he found out that this happened, started making statements and basically said, the family stands behind Nehemiah. Like, he is a wonderful child. Something must have happened. And
oof.
the idea that he just got frustrated with his mom, so killed his whole fucking family, was really fucking weird. So they they went to trial in like October 2015, I think, but they kept delaying the trial because they were putting him through a number of like mental, you know, competency hearings and things because he was obviously something's fucking going on. Eventually, though, they decided that he was not crazy and that he could stand trial, and he was initially tried as a juvenile and found guilty, I think, as a juvenile. Like the jury was having a difficult time. And I believe the judge just stepped in and was like, we're going to impose a juvenile sentence because obviously there's something going on. He can
Yeah.
hopefully be rehabilitated. So he got 6 years and he would have been out at age 21. Now, the prosecutor, this fucking bitch, sorry, I don't necessarily think this kid should be out of prison, but the fact that she's so like
Yeah,
rabidly going after a 15-year-old, trying to keep him in
it's
prison for his
gross.
entire life
Well,
is
and you know that that exact
disgusting
same attitude she applies to much more innocent
across the
kids
board.
too.
Yes,
Yeah, so
across the board.
it's a gross way to be.
It's just a disgusting, exactly. It's not an acceptable way to behave. So,
Oh,
in any case, she appeals this, and another judge steps in and allows him to be tried as an adult. Now, even in being tried as an adult, because of his age, he was not allowed to be given life without parole, but he was given a life sentence with parole after 30 years.
that's our
So,
juvenile leniency. Welcome to
yes,
America.
yeah, you can
Woo.
maybe get out at some point eventually. What they
Yeah.
said was that he did not seem that he could be rehabilitated. He seemed too far gone. He seemed,
Okay.
like there's just something. And you know what? There are people where that's the case. They're dead inside and there's something
Yeah.
very, very wrong with them. But the fact that they're just throwing away the key on a 15-year-old who has no record of any sort of anything. Like, people in the community were like, "He was wonderful." His family was like, "He was wonderful."
I mean,
Something
Canada
must
has a
have gone wrong.
situation. Canada has like I forget the case where this came up. A couple of them where like Canada you can be sentenced for life as a juvenile like or a long time, but they constantly
Mhm.
evaluate you and like they want you to get out. But there's a
Yeah,
very select few cases where they're like, oh wow, this person's a
right.
fucking psycho, and they keep renewing your sentence essentially. So they keep but they
Yeah,
always keep evaluating
exactly.
them. Yeah.
Right, right. Here, they're like, "We'll check in on you in 30 years, fuck off."
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, he was 15 years old. Now, what he did was obviously, and that's what makes it so hard, is like, what he did was obviously fucking like horrifying, and lying in wait, like, you have a lot of time to like snap out of it if you're having some sort of
Hmm.
like mental breakdown. He didn't do
It's
that.
yeah. It's not a
But
second
again, he's
degree like snapping kind of moment.
no, no, but I don't think it's like life sentence for a 15-year-old either. I mean, it's a pretty horrendous crime, but they should be doing more like what Canada does and checking in more frequently, but we know that's not gonna happen. So,
Right, right.
and as far as the family goes, they were pretty split. At first, they were kind of all, on his side, but as time wore on and as more facts of the case came out, a lot of his half siblings were like, "Nah, throw away the key. This kid's fucking dangerous. We don't want anything to do with him." So
Yeah.
yeah, pretty interesting situation, a really fucked up story. The hardest part for me is there's like no real lead up. He was
Yeah.
just like a really really churchy kind of guy. His family life was probably pretty repressive. I did read that his dad like would make the girls all have long hair because he liked the way it looked and he wanted his sons to like grow up to be like tough guys. So I do think there was definitely some sort of dynamic in the home that's being overlooked, possibly intentionally because of the power of a politician in the family. I
And
don't
just
know.
the lack of information, lack of narrative. I mean, I don't want to like put it totally on the family, but like there's
No.
also at the same time, I think hardcore religion and hardcore guns are definitely frequently ingredients in making mass shooter type
A
people.
recipe for this. Yeah, I agree.
It's not always, but it can be.
Absolutely agree. Yeah. And I didn't
Yeah.
want to say it either, but like you start to kind of read between the lines on these things and you start to kind of put the pieces together. So
I mean, the
whether
kids'
or
names
not,
are biblical and like in a weird way too, like
yeah,
in a fundamentalist
yeah.
Amish way. Like when you start getting in names that end in like Aya, like
Mhm.
IAAH. Once you're getting into that deep into like Old Testament nerddom, like that's like
Yeah.
oof, you know.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, so there it is.
There you go. Jael is a cool biblical name though. I like that name.
It is. I really like that name too,
Yeah,
actually. I think that's a
yeah,
really good name. And Angelina's fine too. Like, I know people named Angelina. They just go by Angela or Angie or
yeah.
whatever.
Also,
Or Angelina.
There's a great painting where she's like hammering, is it Sisera? Jael and Sisera? And I'm just like, Cindy, you know this Old Testament narrative. Yeah, she hammers a guy in the head. So, I mean, I do think that's a pretty cool female, like role model to have. Jael and
Yeah.
Sisera.
Yeah. Jail and Cicero. Yeah, I agree. I like that. Um, yeah. So anyway, there it is. There it is. Um, that's the fucked up These cases were fucked up, dude.
They're
These are
dark.
like
It's
really
dark.
bad.
Yeah, yeah, they're very dark. And as I said before, I think New Mexico does have a Floridian vibe, but it also has like a spooky like vibe. There's like aliens and deserts and ghosts.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's fucking creepy and weird for sure. Yeah.
yeah, the
Um,
desert is scary, bottom line.
don't love it. Don't love it out there. Spent the night in Tucumcari, New Mexico once and had a great fucking
Mm,
time. But it was definitely eerie. It was one of the coolest little towns I'd ever seen in my life. If you guys ever do like a road trip and you're going through the Southwest, like definitely stop there. It's fucking awesome. They have this like downtown that has like a burned out building and it's like super run down. But then like a couple blocks away, they have this like hotel row where all the hotels have like 50s cars parked out front. Everything is mid-century. It's been like preserved. It's the fucking coolest. So definitely
that's
some cool
rad.
shit out there, but definitely some fucked up shit out there too. So
Nice.
anyway, yeah, there they are. These are the first two. Thanks guys for listening. I gotta run. I'm sure you gotta run
Yeah,
too. It sounds like you have some cool stuff going on.
yeah.
So we'll be back in a couple days with part two of this. I think we're also gonna try to find time for Patreon finally, now that we're kind of back up and running on a normal time frame. So Diva has one locked and loaded. We'll get that out
Hmm.
soon. Thanks everybody for tuning in, supporting us. Please like, rate, review, tell your friends and family. Anybody you think would like us, or anybody you want to traumatize. And until the next episode,
Hey.
off our
Liz.
stab 'em.
Bye.